2 days after I paid $80,000 for my son's wedding, I received a phone call that shattered my entire world. The restaurant manager's voice was shaking so badly I could barely understand him. He whispered like someone was standing right next to him. "Mr. Barnes, please don't put this on speaker. You need to come here alone. And whatever you do, don't tell your wife." At 70 years old, I believed I had seen everything life could throw at a man. I built my business from one broken-down truck into a fleet of hundreds. I survived bankruptcy threats, crooked competitors, and sleepless nights. But nothing prepared me for what I was about to see. Before I continue, please like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time is it there. That morning had started peacefully. I was sitting at my kitchen table in our quiet suburban Atlanta home, drinking black coffee. Sunlight poured through the windows, reflecting off the granite countertops my wife had insisted on installing last year. She said she wanted a fresh start. My wife, Beatrice, stood by the sink arranging white lilies. She hummed a soft church hymn while trimming the stems. To anyone looking in, she was a picture of loyalty, a devoted wife of 40 years who had just watched her only son marry the love of his life. And the wedding had been perfect. My son Terrence looked proud and emotional. His bride, Megan, looked beautiful in white. I had given him the deed to our lake house as a wedding gift. $500,000, signed over without hesitation. I remember feeling satisfied, accomplished, like a man who had done right by his family. Then my phone buzzed. It was Tony, the manager of the 5-star venue where we hosted the reception. I had already paid the full bill in cash. There should have been no problems. When I answered, there was a long pause before he spoke. "Mr. Barnes, are you alone?" I glanced at Beatrice. She was still humming, unaware. "I am," I said carefully. He lowered his voice even more. "We were reviewing security footage from the VIP lounge after the event. There's something you need to see. It involved your wife and your daughter-in-law." My heart skipped. "They stayed behind after everyone left," he continued. "Sir, please come alone, for your own safety." The call ended. I sat there frozen, my coffee growing cold in my hand. My wife and my new daughter-in-law, that didn't make sense. They barely tolerated each other. One deeply religious and traditional, the other modern and outspoken. Oil and water, or so I believed. Beatrice turned toward me. "Who was that?" she asked sweetly. "You look pale." I forced a calm expression. "Pharmacy mix-up." I lied. "I need to go sort out." For a split second, her smile faded, and in her eyes, I saw something I had never noticed before. Calculation. The drive to the restaurant felt longer than it actually was. My hands were tight on the steering wheel of my old Ford truck. I own luxury cars, but I drove the truck because it reminded me who I was. A man who started from nothing. A man who earned every dollar. But that morning, I didn't feel strong. I felt hunted. When I arrived, Tony was waiting near the back entrance. He wasn't dressed like his usual confident self. His tie was loose. His face looked pale. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Barnes," he said quickly. "Please, this way." He led me through the kitchen, past chefs preparing for lunch, and into a small security office in the basement. The room smelled like old coffee and dust. "Sit down," he said, pointing at a chair in front of several monitors. I didn't sit right away. "Tony," I said calmly, "just tell me what this is about." He swallowed hard and typed the password into computer. A video file appeared on the screen. Time stamp, 11:47 p.m., the night of the wedding. He pressed play. The camera showed the VIP lounge we rented for the bridal party. The guests were gone. The lights were dim. Then the door opened. Beatrice walked in. But something was different. She wasn't limping like she sometimes did at church. She wasn't moving like a tired 70-year-old woman. She walked in confidently, strong. She went straight to the minibar and opened a bottle of expensive champagne. Seconds later, Megan walked in, still in her wedding dress, heels in her hand. They looked at each other and smiled, not polite smiles, victorious smiles. Beatrice poured 2 glasses and handed one to Megan. They clinked them together. "To the most gullible man in Atlanta," Megan said with a laugh. My chest tightened. Beatrice laughed too. But it wasn't her usual soft laugh. It was sharp, cold. "To Elijah," she said, "the goose that lays golden eggs." I leaned forward in my chair. My fingers dug into the armrest. Megan sat down on the couch and put her feet on the table. "Did you see his face when he gave us the lake house?" she said. "He really thinks I want to spend weekends in that place." Beatrice waved her hand dismissively. "It's not about the lake house," she said calmly. "We sell it in a few months. $500,000 in cash. That clears your debt and secures the Miami condo." "Miami?" My wife hated Miami. She called it sinful. Megan laughed again. "I just hope Terrence doesn't get suspicious," she said. "Pretending to be in love with him is exhausting." My breathing became heavier. Beatrice leaned closer to her. "Stick to the plan," she whispered. "Once the baby is born, the trust activates. 20 million transfers to the next generation." My heart stopped. The family trust. Only I and Beatrice knew the full terms. How did Megan know? Then Megan said something that made my blood turn cold. "It's funny," she smirked. "Terrence really believes the baby is his." The room started spinning. I looked at Tony. He looked away. But the video wasn't finished. And what came next would destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. I thought the worst was already behind me. I was wrong. On the screen, Megan leaned closer to my wife, lowering her voice. "What about the real problem?" she asked. "How much longer does he have?" My wife didn't hesitate. "Soon," she said calmly. "I adjusted his heart medication 3 weeks ago. The air left my lungs. I've been mixing small amounts into his morning smoothies," she continued. "Just enough to build up slowly. It will look natural. The doctor already says his heart is weak." Megan smiled. "So, one morning he just doesn't wake up?" "Yes," Beatrice said. "Peaceful. No questions. And then everything becomes ours." My hands went numb. For 40 years, that woman slept beside me, prayed beside me, ate at my table, and every morning she had been trying to kill me. Tony paused the video, but I shook my head, let it play. I needed to see how deep the betrayal went. Megan poured herself another drink. "And Terrence?" she asked. "He's too soft. He almost cried during the wedding toast." "He will fall in line," Beatrice replied. "He always does. He's weak like his father." They both laughed. Then Megan said something that split my world in half. "You know what's hilarious?" she said. "Terrence actually thinks that baby is his. He doesn't even question the timeline." I felt dizzy. "But if Elijah ever asks for a DNA test," Megan added. "He won't." Beatrice interrupted confidently. "He sees what he wants to see. He trusts me." That word hit harder than anything else. Trust. I trusted her with my life. And she used that trust as a weapon. Then the final knife twist came. "Once he's gone," Megan said, "we sell the company, cash out the assets, and move to Miami." "Yes," Beatrice nodded. "No more pretending. No more small-town church life. We finally live the way we deserve." Deserve? I built everything from scratch. The long nights, the broken trucks, the unpaid bills, the sacrifices, and they called it something they deserved. The video ended. The screen went black. The silence in that small security room felt heavier than concrete. Tony turned toward me slowly. "Mr. Barnes," I didn't know what else to do. I stood up, but my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. My wife was poisoning me. My daughter-in-law was carrying a child that might not even be my blood. My son was either blind or part of it. I walked toward the door. "Are you calling the police?" Tony asked nervously. I stopped. If I went to police right now, they'd deny everything. They'd say it was a joke. They'd hire lawyers. They'd destroy evidence. And I would be painted as a confused old man. No, this wasn't just betrayal. This was war. And I had survived wars before. I turned back to Tony. "Give me a copy of that video." He handed me a flash drive. It felt heavy in my palm, like a loaded weapon. I put it in my pocket and walked toward the exit. "Sir, you can't go back home," Tony said. "She's poisoning you." I looked at him. "Oh, I'm going home," I said quietly. "They think I'm dying." A slow, Cold anger settled inside me. Now I'm going to let them believe it. I raised a glass to my lips. Beatrice's eyes didn't blink. She was studying me the way a scientist studies a test subject. I tilted my head back and let the thick green liquid touch my tongue. It tasted bitter, metallic, wrong. But I didn't swallow. Instead, I coughed lightly and turned my head, pretending the ginger burned my throat. Most of the smoothie spilled back into the glass. The small amount that entered my mouth, I discreetly let slide into the napkin I held near my chin. "Strong today?" I said, forcing a smile. She laughed softly. "Extra ginger. Good for circulation." Circulation. That was ironic. I pretended to take 2 more small sips, never actually swallowing. Then I set the half-empty glass down. "I feel a little tired," I muttered. "I'm going to sit down." "Of course," she said gently. "Rest, Elijah." Rest. That's what she wanted. I walked into the living room and sat in my recliner. My pulse was racing, not from poison, but from adrenaline. This was the moment. If I wanted the truth, I had to force it into the open. I waited 20 minutes. Then I let my body go limp. I started breathing heavily, unevenly, like a man struggling for air. "Beatrice!" I called weakly. She didn't run. Her footsteps were slow, measured. She appeared in the doorway and just stood there watching me. I slid off the chair and collapsed onto the carpet with a hard thud. I clutched my chest. I gasped loudly. Then I went still, completely still, face down on my own living room floor. The silence that followed was terrifying. I waited for panic, for screaming, for her to call 911. Instead, I heard something that froze my blood. Her heels clicked slowly across the floor. She stopped beside me, and then she kicked me, not hard enough to injure, but hard enough to test if I'd react. I didn't move. She kicked me again, harder. "Get up," she whispered under her breath. I stayed limp. A long pause. Then she laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was satisfied. Finally, she whispered. Finally, she walked away. I heard her dial a number. "Megan," she said calmly. "It's done. He drank it. He's on the floor." My heart pounded so loudly I was afraid she could hear it through carpet. "Yes," she continued. "He went down fast." A pause. "No, don't call anyone yet. Bring the paperwork first. The power of attorney and the DNR form. We need everything ready before the paramedics come." DNR form? I had never signed a do not resuscitate order. She had forged my signature. She hung up the phone. Then something even darker happened. Soft gospel music started playing from the speakers. Amazing Grace. She began humming along while I lay there pretending to be dead. My wife was celebrating my death, right over my body. That's when I understood something clearly. The man she thought she killed wasn't coming back. But the man who would rise from this floor, he would be far more dangerous. I stayed on that floor, face down, motionless. My ribs hurt from where she kicked me, but I didn't dare move. Minutes later, I heard the front door burst open. Fast footsteps. "Dad." It was Terrence, my son, the boy I taught to ride a bike, the boy I carried on my shoulders during parades, the boy I worked 18-hour days for so he would never struggle like I did. He dropped to his knees beside me. "Dad, wake up," he shouted, shaking my shoulders. For a split second, something inside me softened. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he wasn't part of it. "Mom, what happened?" he cried. "He just collapsed," Beatrice said calmly. Too calmly. His heart finally gave out. "We need to call 911. Terrence yelled. Hope flickered inside me. "Yes, son. Call them. Save your father." I heard him fumbling for his phone. But before he could press anything, a sharp slap echoed in the room. "Stop it." Megan snapped. The sound of the phone hitting the hardwood floor followed. "He's dying." Terrence yelled back. "He's supposed to die," Megan hissed. My stomach twisted. She wasn't even whispering. She wasn't afraid. She was angry that he hesitated. "If you call now, they might revive him," she continued. "And then what? He lives. He controls everything. And we stay stuck." Terrence's breathing became uneven. The baby is coming, Megan pressed. Do you want your child raised in debt? Do you want to be a failure forever? Silence. Heavy, painful silence. I waited, begging inside my head. Pick up the phone, son. Be a man. Instead, I heard something worse than shouting. I heard him crying. Soft, weak. I'm sorry, Dad, he whispered, and he stepped away from me. In that moment, something inside my chest cracked. The father in me died. The protector. The provider. He was gone. Beatrice stepped in like a general finishing a mission. Look at him, she said gently. He signed a DNR last month. He didn't want machines keeping him alive. Lie, forgery, manipulation. He wanted dignity, she continued smoothly. Let him go peacefully. Is it signed? Terrence asked weakly. Yes, baby, she lied. A pen scratched across paper. Sign here as a witness, Megan said, and I heard my son do it. He signed a false timeline. He signed away the truth. He signed his name beside my death. 5 more minutes. They said, 5 more minutes, and then they would call it in. I couldn't wait 5 minutes. If I stayed down any longer, they would control the narrative completely. I gathered air slowly into my lungs. And then I coughed, violently, explosively. I rolled onto my back, gasping for air. The scream that followed came from Megan. Beatrice stumbled backward. Terrence froze. I blinked slowly, pretending confusion. What happened? I rasped. Their faces were pale. They weren't relieved. They were terrified, because the man they thought was dead was staring right back at them. The room went silent. Not the kind of silence filled with relief. The kind filled with fear. Beatrice recovered first. She always did. Elijah, she cried, dropping to her knees beside me. Oh my God, you're alive. Her hands grabbed my shoulders. She tried to hug me, but I could feel the tension in her grip. It wasn't love. It was frustration, like a hunter whose trap had snapped shut too early. I fainted. I whispered, pretending weakness. Yes, she said quickly. You collapsed. We thought your heart stopped. I slowly turned my head toward Terrence. He looked like he had seen a ghost. Why are you crying, son? I asked softly. He wiped his face. Dad, we thought you were gone. Gone. They were ready to bury me. Megan stood a few steps back, her face tight. No tears. No fake concern. Just calculation. I pushed myself up slowly, pretending it took all my strength. Help me, I said to Terrence. He hesitated, just for a second. Then Megan gave him a small nod. Only then did he reach down and pull me up. That hesitation cut deeper than any knife. I leaned heavily on him as if my legs were weak. I don't remember much. I muttered. I just felt dizzy. Maybe that smoothie didn't agree with me. Beatrice flinched, barely noticeable. But I saw it. We should call the doctor, she said quickly. Or go to the hospital. No hospitals, I replied firmly. I just need rest. I walked to my recliner and sat down slowly. My eyes drifted to the binder on the coffee table. What's that? I asked casually. Beatrice rushed to grab it. Oh, church paperwork, she said too fast. Lies stacked on lies. I leaned back and closed my eyes for a moment. I needed to shift the game. If I accuse them now, they'd deny everything. They'd say I was confused, delirious. No, I needed them comfortable, greedy, competing. I've been thinking, I said quietly. All 3 of them stiffened. That spell just now, it made me realize something. What's that, Dad? Terrence asked. I don't have as much time as I thought. I saw it instantly. Fear vanished. Hope replaced it. Predatory hope. I've been holding on control too tightly. I continued. The company, the properties, the trust. Megan took a small step forward. What are you saying? She asked carefully. I'm saying, I sighed, it's time to prepare for the future. Time to decide who takes over. Silence. Thick. Electric. I want to name one sole heir. I said slowly. The word hung in the air. Sole heir, not joint control, not shared. One person. I watched their faces. Beatrice straightened. Megan's eyes sharpened. Terrence looked confused. Next Sunday, I continued, after church, I'll make the announcement publicly, in front of everyone. Publicly? Megan asked. Yes. I nodded, with Pastor Silas presiding. I want everything official. Clean. Beatrice smiled. She thought this was her victory. They all did. I'll spend this week praying about it, I said, watching, observing, seeing who truly deserves it. Competition. That's what I gave them. Not unity. Not teamwork. Competition. And greed destroys partnerships faster than truth ever could. I stood slowly. Oh, and Beatrice, I added lightly. No more smoothies for now? I think I'll stick to water. Her smile froze. Of course, honey. I walked down the hallway to my study and locked the door behind me. Then I turned on the hidden security monitor. In the living room, they were already arguing. They weren't partners anymore. They were rivals. And I had just turned my own funeral into a battlefield. The moment I locked my study door, my hands finally started shaking, not from fear, from rage. I walked to my desk and opened the hidden safe behind the bookshelf. Inside were documents, backup drives, and a small recording device. Years ago, when dealing with corrupt business partners, I learned one lesson: always gather proof before you strike. Now that lesson was about to save my life. I pulled out a small plastic evidence bag and carefully removed the napkin I had used to spit out the smoothie. It still smelled bitter. Chemical. If Beatrice had truly been poisoning me, I needed scientific proof, not suspicion. Proof. I made a call. Dr. Harris. I said when he answered, I need a toxicology test. Urgent? He owed me a favor from years ago when I funded his private clinic expansion. He didn't ask questions. Bring the sample, he said. Next, I needed answers about something even darker. The baby. The trust fund clause required a biological grandchild. Only Beatrice and I knew the exact details. Yet Megan had spoken about it confidently in that video. Which meant, Beatrice told her, which meant they planned everything long before the wedding. I grabbed my jacket and walked quietly out of the house. Beatrice and Megan were in the kitchen whispering. Terrence was in the garage pretending to be busy. None of them stopped me. They thought they were winning. They had no idea the board had flipped. At the clinic, Dr. Harris examined the napkin carefully. After running a quick preliminary analysis, he returned with a serious expression. Elijah, he said quietly, this contains a high concentration of digoxin. My stomach tightened. That was heart medication. In small doses, it regulates rhythm. In high doses, it stops the heart. If you had swallowed this, he continued, you likely would have suffered cardiac arrest within the hour. No doubt left. My wife wasn't adjusting medication. She was executing me. I nodded slowly. And one more thing, I added. I handed him 2 additional samples. Terrence's hair from his brush, and a disposable coffee cup I had taken earlier from Pastor Silas's office. Dr. Harris looked at me carefully. You want a paternity test? It wasn't a question. I didn't respond. For hours later, he came back with a sealed folder. His face told me everything before he spoke. Elijah, the probability is 99.9%. The room felt smaller. Pastor Silas is Terrence's biological father. 32 years, 32 birthdays, 32 Father's Days, all built on a lie. The man who married us, the man who baptized my son, the man I call brother, had been sleeping with my wife, and I had been raising his child. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Something inside me simply turned cold, stone cold. I left the clinic and sat in my truck staring at the steering wheel. My wife tried to kill me. My daughter-in-law planned to steal everything. My son was never mine, and my best friend betrayed me for decades. I pulled out my phone. Sterling, I said when my lawyer answered. Activate Omega. She went silent. That's the nuclear option, she said carefully. I know. Once activated, Omega would freeze accounts, liquidate assets, transfer ownership, and lock everything down. Irreversible. There's no going back after this, she warned. I don't have a family, I replied calmly. I have enemies. And by Sunday, they were all going to learn exactly who they had tried to bury. Once I activated Protocol Omega, there was no turning back. By midnight, every major account under my name was frozen. Investments were being quietly liquidated. Properties were flagged for transfer. Sterling moved fast. She always did. No alerts were sent to the house. Not yet. I wanted them calm, confident, greedy. The next morning, I drove to the church. If Pastor Silas was going to fall, he was going to fall in front of everyone. Wednesday night service was always packed. 500 people minimum. Community leaders, business partners, church members who believed Silas was a holy man. Perfect audience. When I arrived, the sanctuary lights were glowing warm against the stained glass windows I had donated years ago. I sat in the back pew and watched him preach. Faithfulness is a foundation of family. Silas boomed from the pulpit. The irony almost made me laugh. A man who cannot honor his covenant dishonors God, he continued. The congregation shouted, Amen. I looked at Beatrice, sitting proudly in the front row. Eyes closed, hands raised, saintly, Poisoner. Terrence sat beside her, nodding along, completely unaware of the DNA results sitting in my jacket pocket. Or maybe he suspected. But cowardice is stronger than suspicion. After the service ended, I moved toward the altar. Silas saw me and smiled widely. Elijah, my brother, he said, spreading his arms. Brother. The word tasted bitter. You feeling stronger? He asked. Stronger than ever. I replied calmly. I leaned closer. You know, Silas, I said quietly, Terrence has started to look more like you every year. For a split second, his smile twitched, just slightly. Then it returned. They say spiritual fathers leave an imprint, he said smoothly. I prayed over that boy for years. Spiritual father. He was mocking me without even realizing it. I'm glad you've been there for him, I said, especially when I was busy building everything. He nodded slowly. You were focused on business. I focused on guiding the family. Guiding. Is that what he called it? I reached into my pocket and pulled out a check. $50,000. For Sunday, I said, I want the biggest event this church has ever seen. His eyes locked on the number. Generosity always blinded him. I want every screen in this building active. I continued. Sanctuary, fellowship hall, overflow rooms, and I want the live stream running. You want a broadcast? He asked. I want the world to see the transfer of legacy, I said. He smiled proudly. It will be historic. Oh, it would be historic. He tucked the check into his pocket without hesitation. Stand beside me when I make the announcement. I added, I want you right there. It would be my honor. Of course it would. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, confident, a man who believed he was untouchable. As I walked out into the night air, I called Sterling. Is everything ready? I asked. The restaurant footage, the cafe recording, the lab results, all compiled, she replied. One flash drive, one trigger. Sunday was no longer about succession. It was about exposure. They thought they were attending a coronation. In reality, they were walking into a public execution, and I was going to let the whole world watch. Saturday morning, my phone buzzed before sunrise. Not a call, a bank notification. Transaction declined. $10,000. Location, an upscale boutique downtown. I smiled. Megan. Another notification popped up. Transaction declined. Then another. She kept trying. By midnight, Sterling had frozen every shared account under security review. No warnings. No explanations. Just silence. I imagined the scene clearly. Megan standing at the counter holding an overpriced designer dress. Terrence sitting nearby, scrolling nervously through his phone. The sales clerk swiping the platinum card once, twice, 3 times. Beep. Declined. The embarrassment would hit her harder than any insult. My phone rang. Beatrice. I let it ring twice before answering. Elijah. She snapped the moment I picked up. No sweetness. No act. What did you do? Good morning to you, too, I replied calmly. The accounts are frozen, she shouted. My card was swallowed by the ATM. Everything says zero balance. I kept my tone steady. The bank flagged unusual activity, I said. Possible hacking attempt. Standard security lockdown. Hacking? She repeated. Yes, I continued smoothly. They traced it to a device connected to Megan's laptop. Probably a virus. Silence. Heavy silence. I had just dropped a grenade between them. That girl, Beatrice muttered under her breath. Perfect. It'll clear in 48 hours. I added. By Monday, everything will reset. But the reception is tomorrow, she said. The transfer ceremony. Vendors need payment. Relax, I said. I'll bring a certified cashier's check. Old school. Manual. $1 million to kickstart the new head of the family. Her breathing slowed. Greed overcame panic. $1 million? She asked softly. Yes, I said, for the sole heir. She didn't ask who that heir was. She didn't care. She believed it would be her. I'll be home soon, I told her. Getting cleaned up. Big day tomorrow. After hanging up, I drove past the shopping district. I spotted Megan's car parked outside the boutique. She was likely inside arguing. I didn't stop. I went to the barber instead. Not because I needed a haircut, because I needed witnesses. Big ceremony tomorrow, Elijah? Old Mr. Jenkins asked as he trimmed my beard. Yes, I replied. Time to bless my family. Family is everything, he said. I nodded slowly. Yes, it is. When I returned home, the atmosphere had changed. Beatrice was tense. Megan looked furious. Terrence avoided eye contact. They were no longer united. They were suspicious. Good. I've arranged a special video presentation for tomorrow. I announced casually at dinner. A tribute to our journey. Beatrice smiled cautiously. That's lovely. Megan's eyes narrowed. What kind of video? Memories, I said. Important truths. That word hung in the air. Truth. They were too distracted by money to question it further. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I heard voices outside. I moved quietly to the window. Terrence stood near Megan's car, whispering on the phone. What if he knows? He said anxiously. He doesn't. Megan snapped through the speaker. He's old. He's scared. Stick to the plan. What about the pills? Terrence asked quietly. We finish it after the check clears, she replied coldly. I'll handle it. There it was. Confirmation. Even after everything, he was still choosing her. I stepped back into the darkness of the room. Sunday morning was less than 12 hours away. They were preparing for celebration. But what they didn't understand was simple. You should never try to bury a man who knows how to dig. And tomorrow, I was bringing a shovel. Sunday arrived bright and calm. The kind of morning that feels holy. The kind that hides storms. I dressed slowly in my navy blue three-piece suit. Custom tailored. Sharp. Powerful. I wanted to look strong. Not like a dying old man. Like a king. Downstairs, Beatrice was already dressed in white. Elegant. Church perfect. Megan wore a soft blue dress. Modest enough for sanctuary, but expensive enough to signal victory. Terrence looked pale. Nervous. Good. The drive to the church was quiet. No small talk. No laughter. Just the weight of expectation hanging between us. When we arrived, the parking lot was packed. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Business partners. Church leaders. Community members. Even a few local reporters. Word had spread that Elijah Barnes was stepping down. Inside, the sanctuary glowed. Large screens were set up just like I requested. Cameras positioned. Live stream running. Pastor Silas had delivered exactly what I paid for. He greeted us at the front. Elijah, my brother, he said warmly, today is historic. Yes, I replied calmly. It is. Service began as usual. Songs. Prayers. Then Silas took the stage. Today, he announced proudly, we witness a legacy transfer, a faithful servant stepping into rest. Applause filled the room. Beatrice squeezed my hand. Megan smiled confidently. Terrence stared at the floor. After the final hymn, Silas invited me forward. "Let us celebrate stewardship and family," he declared. "Family." I walked slowly to the podium. Every camera focused on me. I adjusted the microphone. "My friends," I began, letting my voice sound slightly tired but steady. 40 years ago, I started with one truck. The crowd nodded. I built an empire not for myself, but for my family. Applause again. I paused. And today I plan to name a sole heir. I saw Megan's eyes light up. Beatrice stood straighter. Terrence swallowed hard. But before I do that, I continued, "There's something important we must review." I nodded toward the tech booth. "Please play the presentation." The screens behind me flickered to life. At first, old family photos appeared. Wedding pictures. Baby Terrence. Vacation memories. Soft music played. The audience smiled. Beatrice relaxed. Then the music cut abruptly. The image changed. Security footage. The VIP lounge. Beatrice pouring champagne. Megan laughing. To the most gullible man in Atlanta. Gasps filled the sanctuary. Beatrice's face drained of color. Megan stepped back. "What is this?" she whispered. The video continued. The poison confession. The trust fund discussion. Terrence gripping the pew in shock. Then the cafe recording played over the speakers. Megan's voice clear as day. "Sign everything to me, or I'll accuse you." Murmurs exploded through the crowd. Silas stepped away from me slowly. But I wasn't finished. The final slide appeared. Lab results. DNA confirmation. 99.9% probability. Pastor Silas, biological father. The sanctuary went silent. Dead silent. I turned slowly toward him. "Spiritual father?" I asked calmly into microphone. His mouth opened. No words came out. I looked at Beatrice. 40 years, I said. Then at Terrence. 32 years. Then back to the congregation. This is the family I was about to bless. The room erupted. Shouts. Gasps. Phones recording. Live stream still running. Silas tried to speak, but I raised my hand. "One more thing," I said. "I activated Protocol Omega. Every account, every asset, gone, donated, liquidated, transferred. There is no inheritance." I finished calmly. The king had stepped down, but he had taken the kingdom with him, and the entire world had just watched the throne collapse. For a few seconds after the final slide disappeared, no one moved. It felt like the entire church had stopped breathing. Then chaos exploded. "What is this?" someone shouted from the back. "That can't be real," another voice yelled. Phones were raised everywhere. The live stream comments were flooding so fast the screen operator didn't even try to hide them anymore. Beatrice grabbed my arm. "Elijah, turn it off," she hissed through clenched teeth. "This is private." "Private?" I repeated calmly into the microphone. Was my murder supposed to be private too? Gasps rippled across the sanctuary. Megan stepped forward, her face red with fury. "This is fake," she shouted. "He edited it. He's confused. He's sick." I nodded slowly. "Am I sick?" I asked the crowd. "Or am I the only one who's been awake?" I turned toward the tech booth again. "Play the audio from last night." The speakers crackled. Terrence's voice filled the room. "What if he knows?" Then Megan's voice, sharp and cold. "We finish it after the check clears." The silence that followed was heavier than before. Terrence staggered backward, like someone had punched him. He looked at Megan. "You said it was just talk," he whispered. She didn't answer. Beatrice suddenly dropped to her knees in front of me. Tears streamed down her face. "Elijah, please," she cried. "It was a mistake. I was scared. I thought you were leaving me with nothing." The congregation watched in shock. 40 years of marriage reduced to a public confession. "You were never going to have nothing," I said quietly. "You had everything." Silas finally found his voice. "This is an attack from the enemy," he shouted, raising his Bible. "The devil is trying to divide this church." I stepped closer to him. "No," I said calmly. "DNA doesn't come from the devil." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Church elders began whispering among themselves. 2 deacons moved towards Silas, asking him questions he couldn't answer. Terrence looked at me with tears in his eyes. Dad, I didn't know about the DNA, he said weakly. I swear. I studied his face. For the first time that morning, he looked less like a coward and more like a confused child. But you knew about the pills, I replied. He lowered his head. That was enough. Police officers entered the sanctuary. I hadn't called them. Someone in the audience had. They moved toward Beatrice and Megan first. Megan tried to run. She didn't get far. Beatrice didn't resist. She just kept crying, repeating, "It wasn't supposed to go like this." Silas stood frozen as an officer approached him. The kingdom had fallen in less than 10 minutes. I stepped away from the podium. The church that once felt sacred now felt like courtroom. Terrence stood alone near the front pew. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked softly. I looked at him carefully. "Because sometimes," I said, "a man needs to see the truth without someone protecting him from it." He wiped his face. "Are you still my father?" The question hung between us. After everything, after the betrayal, after the lies, it was the hardest question of the day, and my answer would decide what kind of man I truly was. Terrence's question stayed in the air. "Are you still my father?" The entire sanctuary felt quieter now. Police officers were escorting Beatrice and Megan out. Pastor Silas was surrounded by church elders, his power gone in a matter of minutes. But none of that mattered in that moment. It was just me and the boy I raised. Biology said he wasn't mine. But life is more than blood. I looked at him carefully. His eyes were red. His shoulders were shaking. For the first time in years, he didn't look like a grown man chasing approval. He looked like a lost child. "I may not be your biological father," I said slowly, my voice steady, "but I'm the man who taught you how to walk. The man who stayed up when you had fevers. The man who worked himself half to death so you'd never feel small." Tears rolled down his face. "That doesn't disappear because of a lab result." He broke down completely. "I was scared," he admitted. "Megan kept telling me you'd cut me out, that I'd never measure up. I didn't know how to stand up to her. That," I said gently, "is where you failed. Not because of blood, because of character." He nodded. I placed my hand on his shoulder. "Being a father isn't about DNA," I continued. "It's about responsibility. And being a son isn't about inheritance. It's about integrity." Around us, people were still whispering. Reporters were outside. The story would spread fast. By nightfall, it would be everywhere. But I felt calm, not victorious, not angry, free. Sterling approached quietly and handed me a folder. "It's done," she said softly. All remaining assets had been transferred into a charitable foundation. Scholarships for kids who grew up without support. Medical grants for heart patients who couldn't afford treatment. If my own family couldn't honor what I built, someone else would benefit from it. I turned back to Terrence. "You have a choice now," I told him. "You can keep chasing shortcuts, or you can build something of your own, from scratch, the hard way." "Will you help me?" he asked. I studied him for a long moment. "I'll guide you," I said, "but I won't rescue you." That was the difference. We walked slowly toward the exit together. Outside, cameras flashed. Questions were shouted. The world wanted drama. But the real lesson wasn't dramatic. It was simple. Trust is powerful. Greed is destructive. And betrayal doesn't just break families. It reveals them. I lost a wife. I lost a friend. I lost an illusion. But I didn't lose myself. And in the end, that's what truly remains.